Welcome to Storycraft Portal, the home of real, raw, and unforgettable true stories. Today, we dive into one of the most haunting chapters in mountaineering tragedy history, the story of Dudley Wolfe, a wealthy American climber who joined the daring K2 expedition in 1939. What was meant to be a glorious summit attempt turned into a frozen nightmare. Trapped by injury at death zone altitude, abandoned by time, and buried under relentless snowstorms, Wolfe waited for help that would never come. 63 years later, his frozen body was found, preserved in ice, a silent witness to a struggle no one survived to tell. This isn't just a tale of endurance. It's a chilling reminder of nature's unforgiving grip and a man's final stand against it. It was 1939 when Dudley Wolfe, a wealthy American adventurer, set his sights on one of the deadliest peaks on Earth, K2, known for its brutal weather and unforgiving slopes. This peak was the ultimate test for even the most seasoned climbers. Wolfe was bold, driven by pride and purpose, joining a team of experienced mountaineers led by Fritz Wiesner. Though Wolfe lacked high-altitude experience, he was physically fit and mentally obsessed with glory. As the K2 expedition began, the ice-crusted mountain loomed like a silent giant, warning all who dared approach. The team moved from base camp to higher altitudes, each step drawing them closer to the death zone. Wolfe was determined to prove himself. But K2 doesn't care who you are. What started as a quest for triumph would soon spiral into a desperate fight for survival, one that would etch Wolfe's name into mountaineering tragedy forever. As the K2 expedition pushed higher, the atmosphere began to change. The air grew thinner and the silence sharper. Dudley Wolfe moved slower than the rest, his body reacting poorly to the altitude, but his ego wouldn't let him stop. The team reached Camp 4, high on the mountain's shoulder, where winds screamed like ghosts and frost bit through the thickest layers. Wolfe's health was declining, but he insisted on climbing higher. Doubts grew among his teammates. Was he prepared for this? Fritz Wiesner warned him, but Wolfe remained defiant. They pressed upward, ice cracking underfoot, with death only one misstep away. Nights became unbearable. Inside his tent, Wolfe coughed blood into his sleeping bag, but he told no one. The mountain was beginning to test him. He didn't know it yet, but Camp 7 would become his prison, and this mountaineering tragedy was just getting started. By the time the team reached Camp 7, most members were exhausted and frostbitten. Dudley Wolfe was in worse shape. Weak, dehydrated, barely able to move. Wiesner made the hard call to retreat. But Wolfe, delusional with altitude sickness, insisted he would stay behind to rest, confident he could descend later. The others left him a tent, food, and supplies, promising to return. But nature had other plans. Storms rolled in like crashing waves. For days, visibility was zero. Radio silence. No one could climb back up. Wolfe remained stranded at Camp 7, battling isolation, freezing winds, and his own failing body. Supplies dwindled. His journal entries grew more erratic. Days passed, then weeks. He had been left behind, not by betrayal, but by the wrath of the mountain. What happened next would turn this solo survival into a headline-making mountaineering tragedy still haunting the K2 expedition to this day. Back at lower camps, panic spread. No word from Dudley Wolfe. Wiesner and the team were helpless against the raging storms. Still, 3 Sherpas volunteered to climb back to Camp 7, a heroic rescue attempt against near-certain death. They disappeared into the whiteness. Days passed. Nothing. The K2 expedition became a ghost mission. Rumors swirled. Had Wolfe survived? Had the Sherpas reached him? Supplies were too low, conditions too harsh to send anyone else. Base camp grew eerily quiet, every gust of wind sounding like a scream. Wolfe's name was whispered in fear. With each passing day, hope turned to grief. The world below remained unaware of the tragedy unfolding in the clouds. Letters later revealed the Sherpas may have found Wolfe alive, but none of them ever returned. This wasn't just a failed mission, it was a vanishing. A mountaineering tragedy now written in ice and silence. The season ended with Dudley Wolfe never coming down. Official reports called it a fatal accident. But questions remained. Why didn't the rescue succeed? Did Wolfe die alone, or with the Sherpas beside him? The K2 expedition returned broken and grieving. Wolfe's body was never found. Not in 1940, not for decades. His family mourned in silence, denied closure. For mountaineers, K2 gained a darker legend, a peak that not only kills but swallows. Years passed, and Wolfe became a ghost of the mountain. Then in 2002, climbers stumbled upon frozen remains at high altitude. The body of a man, well preserved by the cold. Was it him? Was this the end of the mystery? DNA tests were inconclusive, but the watch, boots, and gear matched. After 63 years, Wolfe had been found. Maybe. The mountain had released one of its secrets, but at a cost. When the 2002 team discovered the body, it wasn't just bones and frozen fabric. It was a moment frozen in time. The climber lay just below Camp 7, partially buried in ice, hands folded, boots intact. Among his few remaining items was a watch, still on his wrist, its glass cracked but hands motionless. The name Wolfe, stitched inside a jacket, confirmed what many feared. Dudley Wolfe had died exactly where they left him. The news shocked the climbing community. Not because he had died, but because the K2 expedition had truly lost someone so permanently that only the mountain could return him. This wasn't just another fatal climb. It had become a symbol of endurance, abandonment, and the cold politics of high-altitude survival. Was he left to die, or did he choose to stay, believing he could survive? The mountaineering tragedy had one more question. Who decides who gets saved? After Wolfe's body was discovered, items were returned to his family, including a weather-damaged journal and unsent letters, protected inside a metal tin. In those final pages, Dudley Wolfe documented his deteriorating health, his belief the rescue team would return, and his longing for home. "I can't feel my hands. Still hoping Fritz comes soon," one line read. These pages weren't just words. They were echoes of a man fighting for hope. The journal became historical evidence of the K2 expedition's human cost. But among climbers, it ignited debates. Should he have been left there? Did ego blind him to danger? Or did others abandon him too soon? These questions tore through mountaineering forums. But one thing was clear: Wolfe hadn't died instantly. He had waited, hoped, wrote, until the cold took his last breath. A mountaineering tragedy sealed in ink, never meant to be read, now impossible to forget. Years after Wolfe's remains were found, his story took on mythic proportions. Climbers spoke of hearing whispers in the wind above Camp 7, or feeling watched on still nights. His name became a cautionary tale, told by Sherpas and Westerners alike. Some said they saw a flicker of movement near the ledge where he was found, a shadow in the snow. Whether fact or mountain folklore, Dudley Wolfe had become part of K2 itself. The K2 expedition was no longer just history. It had morphed into a living legend. Memorials were built, tributes paid, but no one who passed Camp 7 did so without thinking of him. Every bootstep near that ledge carried a weight heavier than the snow. The mountaineering tragedy had become a spiritual scar on the mountain. Wolfe didn't die in vain. He became a symbol of what nature takes and what it refuses to return. The story of Dudley Wolfe changed how the climbing world viewed survival and responsibility. Debates erupted in alpine circles. Should the strong risk death to save the weak? Are all climbers truly equal in the death zone? Wolfe's fate sparked ethics lectures, documentaries, and expedition rewrites. His name appeared in training manuals as a case study in judgment, leadership, and human limits. The K2 expedition had succeeded in part. Routes had been tested, records set, but at what cost? Wolfe's death forced a harsh truth onto the climbing world. No amount of wealth, pride, or preparation guarantees rescue. He had faced the storm, and he had waited. Climbers today still read his story before attempting K2, and many leave notes in his memory. His final hours echo as a warning. The mountain doesn't negotiate. It takes, and sometimes It waits before giving something back. A legacy carved in ice. 63 years after he disappeared into snow and silence, Dudley Wolfe's story came full circle. His body was returned to memory, his name restored to more than just a footnote in expedition logs. The K2 expedition of 1939 had claimed him, but could not erase him. Through recovered letters, photographs, and the testimony of climbers, a clearer picture emerged. One not of recklessness, but of resolve. Wolfe wasn't just a rich amateur. He was a man chasing meaning on the edge of the world. The mountain gave his story back, piece by frozen piece. Today, climbers pass his memorial and pause. His story is now part of every ascent. As winds roar past the summit, some say you can hear his name in the ice. The mountaineering tragedy is no longer just about loss. It is about memory. The case is closed, but the mountain never forgets.